What are the commonalities among leaders who sustain excellence over an extended period of time?
All right, so Monty, the way I start these, I've been super lucky to talk to a lot of amazing leaders. That's why when they posed this idea, I was pumped to have the chance to do it. And a question I'd love to ask people like you is, when you think about yourself as well as the leaders in your life who have sustained excellence, so this is an intentional term, sustained excellence over an extended period of time, and you can name names if you want, what have you found to be some of the common attributes of those people, like some of the behaviors that they exhibit that you've seen to be able to sustain it over time?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing, let's talk first just about leaders, like people who have been successful in leadership roles. One thing I've noticed is that boy, I'm loud. That sounds loud. My voice is always so loud anyway. But anyway, yeah, so the best leaders have this quality. Well, first of all, they have a quality of being able to empower people. Okay, and I talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
But at the heart of that ability to empower people is sort of this incredible, they get a thrill out of seeing other people at their best. Like and I would say maybe the corollary to that is they can't stand it to see somebody who's not at their best, to see someone who's not fulfilling their potential.
Yeah.
So I think that the best leaders it gives them the creeps to see people not at their best.
Yeah.
And they love to see people at their best, so it's sort of like they're driven from both poles.
Yeah, my dad told me early on that life is so much richer when your influence and what you do lifts others up and helps them, and you can do that through empowering them, through trusting them, through loving them. That was like my favorite part of what you're talking about, is like this amazing love. And speaking of that, when I was watching The End yesterday, what a cool trailers, by the way. Your team is amazing.
Oh, the trailer?
But you're flying all over the country, right? A single engine plane yourself, and you're experiencing all these different people, which, by the way, I just from meeting so many different people on the line, this conference is got people from all over the world. It was awesome, but you're doing this, like you're traveling all over the place. What are some of the things you're learning as you're putting yourself in these positions of meeting all these different diverse type of people, where some are, maybe you're scared because they're different, and then you meet them, you're like, wait a second, like this is so cool. So I'm just curious what you learned from this.
One thing I would say, which is an extension of what I learned from Will when I was 15 years old, the guy I talked to in Dairy Queen, the homeless person, is that not only can anyone be your teacher, anyone can be your teacher. And I would say that the people you would think would teach you the most in life, let's say, high-level executives and CEOs and stuff, will probably not teach you anywhere near as much as the people in life who are in entry-level positions, who are minimum wage workers, who are someone who helps you carry your bag, or someone who helps you serve you at a fast food restaurant. Those people tend to have so much more to teach you because they are in the game of learning it themselves, and they've just come upon maybe an epiphany of something that moves them. And whereas people in very high-level positions, they get more and more polished, and sometimes they don't have access to their heart anymore. And the place where you learn the most is from someone's heart. And so when I travel all around the country, meeting people from all these different walks of life, I've found that not only can any of them be my teacher, they are my teachers. They're the people from whom I learned the most of anybody, and these are people whose voices would otherwise perhaps never be heard. These are not famous people. They're not people. Some of them are becoming famous because of the documentary. Now they're getting hit up on social media and stuff. But they're people who are maybe unknown but incredibly wise.
I love that.
And so it's such an honor to be able to go meet with them. And of course, the airplane's a big part of that. But one of the biggest lessons that I keep consistently learning from person after person after person after person who I meet is the value of struggle. It's this, and it's the funny thing. Here in the United States, and really any first world country, if you want to call it that, what is our biggest goal in life, it seems? To eliminate struggle, to increase comfort, to become wealthy, to be fat, dumb, and happy, as the saying goes, or to be by the pool with a drink and I don't need to do anything anymore. There's all these people in this country and these other first world countries who have this dream of, and almost the whole world who have this dream of someday having it easy, of someday being in comfort. And what's really funny about that is that the most incredible people, and these people I'm meeting through my journeys around the country, These incredible people, those who have undergone the most struggle are in the place of the highest learning. Those who have gone through the most struggle have the most wisdom to share. Those who have gone through the most struggle are the mentally strongest. Struggle is the most undervalued happening in our lives, and it's the most powerful teacher. And it's kind of funny because all of us who are involved in some kind of athletics, you talked a lot about athletics in your speech. Great speech, by the way. Thank you.
Thanks.
But you talked a lot about sports and athletics and how hard you struggled and tried and tried and tried. And we all seem to accept that struggle makes sense in athletic endeavors, in running a marathon, doing a triathlon, climbing Mount Everest. We all expect it's going to hurt, and the more we hurt in training, the better we're going to get. And the more we hurt, the bigger our muscles will get. The more we hurt, the bigger our heart, and the better our heart will pump blood. The more we hurt, the better our lungs will function. We all accept that. Well, why the hell can't we accept that the same kind of struggle when it happens here, mentally, is going to build us into a better person, is going to increase our wisdom, is going to make us a wiser and more capable human being.
Yeah.
But yet when we have struggle here, we don't like it. We have to have a hard conversation with our boss. Well, and I'll tell you, that's a question I keep seeing to you and to Mark Lowry yesterday when I saw the questions popping up. The real question I keep seeing popping up, it pops up in all different words. But really what the question is, what do I do with my lousy boss?
Yes. Yeah.
That's really what everyone's asking.
Yeah.
God, this is all cool, but what about my stupid boss?
Yeah.
And of course, everyone here is a boss is like, they're not talking about me. It's some... Listen, I get it. But what do you do about your lousy boss? People are asking me during the break question. They don't ever say my lousy boss. They're just like, well, it's kind of tricky with my boss. So what do you do? Well, I think the answer is, have the tough conversation.
Yeah.
With my boss? Yes, with your boss. Well, what if they fire me? Okay. That's okay if they fire you. If you try to have a conversation with your boss to try to help them be a better leader, and it's coming from a place of, let's say you're my boss. In fact, I'll do a demo. You're my boss. You're a terrible boss, let's just say. Let's say you're terrible.
Okay.
You don't know it. I know it, okay? It wouldn't look like, hey, Ryan, I just want to tell you, you're a terrible boss. Of course you're not going to say that. But you might say, God, Ryan, a lot of times during the big meetings, you're kind of calling me out in a way that feels kind of threatening to me. And look, no, I'm not trying to say you're doing something wrong, but I feel really threatened. And I feel it makes me kind of clam up and it doesn't bring out the best in me. And so if you could just help me out a little bit by maybe when you ask me a question during a meeting, maybe ask it to me in a way, that brings it out of me a little bit better. Maybe ask it a little bit more gently because I get really intimidated. I'm kind of intimidated by you. I'll take this back to a real life example. When I first started, it was funny, someone said to me they wanted to hand me chapstick and a bottle of water yesterday during my speech. And it's true. I get talking until I got cotton mouth and dry lips. Hey, vulnerability. So anyway, when I was an associate. I was a lawyer. I described yesterday in LA for a few years, and I came back to Denver, and I joined this law firm, the one where you had to prove you're a great leader, great lawyer, and develop a practice. And I had this really intense Army Ranger named partner, guy who founded the firm. He's a good friend of mine now, Corky. Well, I had this time with Corky where he was getting in this position where he wanted to make me a partner of the firm, and so he said, you're the next partner around here. And it was about a year after I joined, so I was like, really? And so we were having this talk at his desk one day, and he sort of challenged me on something. Hey, what do you think about this? And I said, and I gave him the answer. And he goes, well, that's not the right answer. I said, well, yeah, it is the right answer. And he took a cup of water and he slammed it on his desk. And he said, no, it's not the right answer. And water got on me. And he yelled at me. And well, hell, it freaked me out. And it hurt. And so I got up and I walked out of his office and I walked down to my office and I shut the door. And I was just so rattled. I was like, holy crap, I trusted this guy. I felt like we had this friendship. And he slammed this glass of water down. So he came down to my office. And my middle name's Frederick. So he came to my office. He goes, Fred, what are you doing? Why'd you walk out? And I said, man, Corky, God, that really hurt. That doesn't work for me. And I think maybe it's best that I resign from this firm. That doesn't work for me. And he looked at me and he said, Fred, I'm sorry. And he said the kindest words ever. I mean, he said, I look at you as a brother and my best friend and the brother I never had, and I'm so sorry I did that to hurt you, and I will never hurt you again.
Wow.
And we've been friends ever since. We were partners for years and years and years. When I went to Chipotle, I was the general counsel of the Chipotle before I went there, the lawyer, but then I made him general counsel. We had this long, incredible, lifelong friendship. And I have no doubt that friendship would never have happened if I wouldn't have just said, hey, it doesn't work for me, I can't do it, that hurts too much. Huh. So I exposed my vulnerability. I mean, if I say I'm hurting, it's kind of checkmate to you if you're an asshole boss. You're like, well, don't hurt.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, that hurts, it hurts me. And I'm not saying it's because I'm good and you're bad, or I'm not even saying it's because you did anything wrong. It hurt me. I can't do it.
Yeah.
Now, if I had not done that, I mean, I had good grades in law school and stuff. I had opportunities. I could have gone somewhere else. I would have gone somewhere else. I was ready to leave that law firm.
Yeah.
But he came down, walked in, and I just told him what was on my mind. And we ended up hugging and saying, hey, man. And he said, I'll never do it again. I said, it's okay. I forgave him right away because he meant it. There was tears in his eyes. There was tears in my eyes. It was a moment.
Wow.
But it went from being a disastrous calamity, would have been, to I think an even more powerful kickoff to something very powerful. So there's a personal story I don't think I've ever told.
No, I like that, man. That's really, one of the things we were talking about before we came up was about ego, and that is a good reminder of kind of ego that on both of your parts, you to be vulnerable and tell them what's going on, even though maybe you fear looking like you're weak or something.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be strong and tough and not have any feelings. And then on his part, to realize, oh, like this is a learning moment for me, and then to check his ego, right?
Yeah.
So can you share more about how Ryan Holiday wrote a book called Ego is the Enemy, and there's all about that, It's,
it's funny though. It's funny. I've never heard of the book.
Yeah.
But when you said ego is the enemy, this is incredible. Ego is fascinating. Okay, so I make a huge study of the human ego. Like that's a big deal. I'm just super passionate about it.
Yeah.
Even when you say ego is the enemy, guess who's calling ego the enemy?
Your ego?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, which is really funny. So that title is like, ego is the enemy. It's like I don't know what you call it, a tautology. I don't know what you call it. But anyway, so ego. We all have an ego.
Yeah.
Okay, we all have one. I've got one. We all have one. So we say some people's ego is bigger than others. Okay, we all have an ego. We cannot and should not think of the ego as bad. Okay, once you think of the ego as bad, that's the ego. Because what the ego does is the ego judges. The ego's whole job in life is to say, this is better, that's worse, this is higher, that's better, I'm going faster now, that's better to go fast, worse to go slow. He's smarter, he's dumber, she's better than she is. It's all about judgment with the ego. That's whenever you find yourself judging something, that's your ego, always. Like, I'm better than him, I'm worse than him. Oh God, Ryan's speech was better than mine. Oop, that's my ego. I was better than Ryan, that's my ego. Always your ego. The ego seeks to diminish and to promote, diminish and promote, but it doesn't ever just want you to be. Okay? And your greatest strength in life happens when you allow yourself to just be. So a lot of people say, well, how do I get rid of the ego? That's the ego, because only the ego tries to get rid of the ego. Right? So really what you have to do, and this...
word cloud, the word ego is going to be right in the middle.
I know, right? Yeah, exactly. So I'd love to talk about ego for 16 hours, and I'm writing a whole second book, and a big talks about ego in there. But let me just suffice it to say, don't try to get rid of your ego, because that which tries to get rid of your ego is the ego.
Gotcha.
Okay? Because the ego wants to always make change, get rid of stuff. So instead of trying to get rid of your ego, the most healthy thing you can do is just know when it's operating. Just watch it. Because that which watches the ego is not the ego. That which watches the ego is the true self. And so, when you are in a situation where, and a lot of people have come up to me during breaks and basically said, just in talking to them last night at the bar, last night at the restaurant, or here in the hallways, they always say something to me like, oh yeah, I'm kind of, God, I take things too personally, or yes, sometimes. People always are ashamed of what they consider to be their weaknesses. Well, I am here to tell you that in my humble opinion, your weaknesses are clearly your greatest strengths. And I mean that for everybody. And I don't mean your weakness like you smoke too many cigarettes. I mean your weakness like your vulnerability. When you feel like, God, I'm just really vulnerable, wow, I'm hurting, go into that pain. There's strength in that pain. When you feel like, God, I'm not good enough, what is that feeling of not feeling good enough? Go into that. There's strength in that feeling. So much like I mentioned that we give a lot more value to a sore muscle, knowing that it's going to get stronger and help us climb up Everest. Much like we give more value to that and less value to our mental trials and tribulations, our mental struggle, so too do we not give enough, acknowledgement and acceptance of our vulnerability. And in that vulnerability, the deeper we can go and find it, the more we find strength. Look at what I talked about yesterday when I was at the law firm trying to be the best at everything. Best. It was all about me. That was me trying to build myself up because I was misguided. Why was I misguided? I was following my egoic desire to achieve something, okay? But the thing that's greatest about everyone in this room right now, the thing that's greatest about every individual here and you and me is not something we have to achieve. It's actually not something we have to achieve. It's something that we already are. And to put it more sort of, I guess, bluntly, it's the greatest thing about each of us it's not what we're going to become. It's what we already are, but sometimes we don't really know. Or put differently, that which we are a part of, and we are all, by the way, united. We're all human beings. We're all a part of what I would call like a universal consciousness. It sounds heady. I'm from Boulder, Colorado. I'm allowed to say things like this. But really, we really all are part of something greater than ourselves. I think we all would say that, wouldn't we? We're all part of something greater than ourselves. If you want to use the word God, are you part of? Let's just say, I don't care what religion you are. Let's just say we can all agree there's something that's great out there and big and strong and powerful and good and ubiquitous. Mm-hmm. Something great, better than us, more powerful than us. Okay, let's just call that God for a minute. If there is a God, and I would say everyone by that definition would probably say, yeah, there's something out there. If there is a God, are you part of God? Whoever that God is. Well, sure. If you're not part of God, then God's not that powerful because he's not part of you. If a tree is growing out of the earth, is that tree part of the earth? Yes. Is the tree the earth? No, the tree is a tree. Is the tree part of the earth? Yes. Is the tree an outgrowth of earth? Yes. So are you an outgrowth of God? Yeah, you are. Are you an outgrowth of the universal consciousness? Of course you are. You are an outgrowth of something magically, enormously wonderful and huge. You don't need to do anything or get any faster, taller, smarter, brighter, richer to get that. In fact, by accumulating all those, what I would call material accomplishments, you come no closer. In fact, most people become more distant from that which is most powerful about themselves. And that's why I say, not only can anyone be your teacher, but the people who are, let's say, I'm using a biblical reference here, but the least of us, Jesus used the word the least of us, as being sort of the most of us, The people who are thought to be of no station in life are, I think, the wisest people in the world, and the people who need to be empowered, listened to, given attention, understood, and loved. And through our efforts to do that in a more powerful way, that's where we get our power, and that's where we get our ability to lead and to deserve to lead.
Wow.
I'm sorry, that went heavy.
You were pretty deep, pretty fast, man. So I have a kind of a fascination with lawyers because my first job ever was a inside sales telephonic rep at a company called LexisNexis, a product I'm guessing you use. LexisNexis is an online legal research tool that attorneys use. And you're a litigator, right, for 20 years? Is that right? Mm-hmm. Is that long?
Well, I think it was like 14 that I was really, yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious, that is there's a lot that goes into being good at that.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you've taken from that experience as a litigator into your world since then with Chipotle and beyond now that you learn like in the courtroom, negotiations, because that's everyday life
it was
stuff,
awesome.
Man. That's like great training ground for that.
Oh, it was the biggest education.
Yeah.
I got it. It was wonderful. Well, I'll tell you, one thing I learned that was profound from my years, I took, thousands of depositions, which is an examination under oath. You're asking someone questions, they got to answer. There's a court reporter, and you've sworn under oath. They have, not the questioner. So I took a lot of these depositions, and one thing I quickly learned in these depositions is not to listen so carefully to what someone is saying. okay? It's kind of a paradox. I had to listen to what they were saying because I had to picture what it's going to look like on the transcript. Can I use that which they're saying on the transcript as an effective tool of evidence in my argument at trial? But also, I saw when they were saying something to me, I trained myself to not listen so much to what they were saying, but what are they actually communicating?
Like their body language and
everything. Body language, cadence, sad or happy, high energy, low energy, leaning forward, leaning back, nervous, relaxed. All these things, and I talk about this in my book pretty extensively, but all those other things communicate way more than their words. Yeah. Legions more. Why? Because all of us have learned to lie with our words. All of us lie. Okay, and I don't mean it as a moral judgment upon any of us, but if I go ask someone in this audience right now, in the hall, passing by, on the way to the bathroom, and they're in a hurry and I'm in a hurry, and let's say they're having a crappy morning, their dog died, and I say, how are you doing? They're likely to say, pretty good, how are you doing? Pretty good. That's a lie. It's not true. And so one of the things that makes you, I think, a profoundly better communicator is to start realizing that the words are probably at least partially not true. If somebody comes up to me after my speech and goes, yeah, I did a good speech, and walks by, was my speech good? Probably not, right? If there's absolutely no enthusiasm in what they say and they feel like they have to say it, they're saying because they have to say it. It's a lie. It's not true. So people say a lot of things to be pleasant, to be kind, be out of habit. Good, how are you? Good, how are you? I mean, no one says shitty, how are you? Shitty, how are you? Good, have a good day. See you later, bye. And so there's all this stuff that's built up through our societal mores and norms and socially accepted behaviors. All of this stuff that's not quite honest, that comes out in words. But most of us, unless we're extraordinary poker players, are not that good at lying with our body language, with our tone, with our intonation, with the way with our energy. We're not that good at lying with it. So if you want to know what someone's really communicating, what should you listen to? The part they're really good at bullshitting or the part that they've not gotten very good at bullshitting? Mm-hmm. The latter, okay? Now, when I was doing these restaurateur interviews at Chipotle, I was interviewing, like I said in my book, I figure 25,000 or more people, one-on-one at a table. This is over 12 or 13 years, so it took a while. But a lot of the people I was interviewing were not English was not their first language. Most of them, Spanish was their first language. And for many of these people, English was not something they had mastered very well yet. I didn't know Spanish very well, but I started to cobble together sort of rudimentary Spanish to ask them questions and to listen to them. I found that what I learned from them was much more accurate, much more honest than the native English-speaking people with whom I spoke. They didn't have the
ability,
prowess of English language yet to bullshit me. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So when I would ask them, hey, so how's it, let's say their boss's name is, Tom. So, hey, how's it work, and I would tell, hey, so how's it working with Tom here? And they'd be like, well, Tom, and I'm like, I hear you. Because if they love Tom, it would sound like, oh, Tom. And I understand. I mean, doesn't even matter what they say, How's Tom? Tom. Or how's Tom? Oh, Tom. So it's a profoundly different, and if you're listening, if you've got your radar out there to hear the stuff that no one's trying to convey to you, you're going to learn legions about them, about what's important, about how they're feeling, about where they are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, about whether they're having a horrible day or a great day. And when you listen to that to which they do not attempt or do not want you to listen, and you respond to that instead of their words, you gain enormous credibility with them, and they trust you, and they believe in you, and they realize, holy shit, this person cares about me. They might not even realize that you care about them here, but they know it here, okay? Because, whoa. So let me go back to the person on the way to the bathroom, I walk by someone, and if I say, let's say I'm walking a little slower, where there's some ability to perceive something, and I say, hey, how are you doing? They go, pretty good, how are you doing? And I feel, whoa, I might stop and go, hey. You said you're doing good, but you don't sound good. Are you okay? In that 2-second interaction, what have I just done? I've shown them that I care. I've actually demonstrated to them that I'm concerned about them and am willing to overlook their bullshit words in favor of really understanding their heart. That I want to be of service. I'd like to know what's wrong. Maybe I can assist. All of that in a 2-second interaction. Is that worth your 2 seconds? You're damn right it is. All the most powerful interactions you're going to have in your life are going to be when you actually look for and experience someone's heart. What's coming through their heart. What's coming through that's most authentic and honest. It's not their words. Almost never. Certainly not in a poker game.
Speaking,
I like poker.
I know. I was reading about that. You do the poker trip with the ski trip with your friends, which I want to get to in a second. But as a lawyer, as a guy who's interviewing people all over the world, right? 25,000, you said? I mean,
that's with Chipotle.
Yeah, right.
All over the world.
But all over the place. I mean, I interview people for a living, so I'm fascinated by questions. I think questions are more interesting than answers in a lot of cases, like questions people like. I'm curious, and you can choose from any time in your life because you've asked questions for a living, essentially.
Yeah.
What are, like from a leadership perspective, what are some of your favorite questions to ask people? I know that the context matters here, so you can take it wherever you want, but I'm just curious, like what questions that you like to ask?
You know, it's funny. To me, it's much more about where the person is, but I would start with something like, hi. Now, that didn't sound like a question, did it?
No.
Kind of is. Hey, how are you doing? Okay, now how are you doing? What could be a less profound, less smart, less intelligent question than that? Well, the answer is, it's one of the best questions. Because when you say, how are you doing, you know they're going to say, pretty good.
Yeah.
Right? You know they're going to say that.
Yeah.
That's not what you're looking for. You know they're going to say that. So you're listening, not listening. You're looking. You're opening your heart, and you're allowing yourself to experience everything else other than the pretty good. Because they're not pretty good. Pretty good's only one of 1,000 things they could be. They're always going to say pretty good, but it's only one of 1,000 things they could be. They're probably not pretty good. Maybe they're really good. They might be not great. They may be a bit sad. They might be a bit nervous. So let's say I'm in an interview with someone at Chipotle. I'm the CEO. I couldn't help it, right? When I interviewed them, I was always the CEO. I couldn't not be that for a minute. Okay, I couldn't not be. So in their mind, I'm in this powerful position, right? Mm-hmm. Whoa, the CEO, right? But I'm not, whoa, the CEO. I'm just Monty. I'm just another knucklehead doing the best I can in this life. Okay, it's not a wow, I'm the CEO. But, okay, society says, wow, he's the CEO. Okay, so as soon as I sit down, I'm at a massive disadvantage to connect with their heart. Huge disadvantage. They're going to be nervous. They're going to maybe be, quote, looking up to me. They're maybe going to, wow, he could do something help me. Wow, he can find out that my boss is an asshole and fire him, but I don't want to tell him that. I hope someone else does. So, I'm in this huge disadvantage. How do I level that disadvantage? How do I eliminate my disadvantage because of my exalted, quote unquote, position? The answer is, how are you? And when they go, pretty good, how are you? I'll be like, good, man. And a lot of times, well, it's really nice to meet you. It's such an honor. And I'll be like, it's such an honor to meet you. And they usually laughed. Oh, me, what's the honor there? The fact was, it was absolutely as much of an honor for me to meet them as it was for them to meet me. So they'd say something like, yeah, but you're Monty Moran, you're the CEO. And I'd be like, yeah, but you're Hector Sanchez. You're a worker here at Chipotle. And they would laugh again. But in their laughter, they would start to go, oh, I see what you're saying. We're people. Mm-hmm. We're people. So I wanted them to please let me off the hook mm-hmm. for being the CEO. I wanted them to forgive me for being the CEO. I wanted them to forget that I was a CEO. And I would say, look, I'm a person sitting in front of you doing the best I can in this life. Yeah. And so if I noticed that they wouldn't let that go, I'd say, hey, I'm just a person doing the best I can in this life. Yeah, but look, you're the CEO. I say, yeah, but you know what? You're 20 years old. I'm 40. You got 20 more. What are you going to do in 20 years? Could be way better than whatever I've done. More interesting. Certainly going to be the best thing for you. And so I worked hard to level the playing field because the playing field was level, not because I was trying to be overly humble. No, it is level. We're just people. Mm-hmm. I am not, in any respect, a better person than anybody by virtue of what I've accomplished in my life, because I'm just a person. And as soon as you realize that, and of course your ego will come in every now and then and tell you, well, I'm not even a very good person because I didn't do a very good job in my speech yesterday. Or I'm a really good person, but that's just your ego. And you can just go, oh yeah, there you are, ego. Hi, thank you, that's cool, I see you. There you are, and get past it and allow yourself to be a person. So back to your question. What are the best questions to ask? The questions which, first of all, level the playing field and let someone know you care. Mm-hmm. The questions which will most help be a catalyst for them to feel in a comfort zone and that they can trust you, yep. that they can share with you. And that also the questions aren't, as you might be gathering, what you ask isn't nearly as important as how you ask it.
How you do it.
And also, what they say isn't even very important compared to what they're communicating to you. So once I know that someone's comfortable with me, which usually happened incredibly fast because they kept laughing at what an idiot I was to say how, the things I'm saying to you, they were sort of laughing at me and realized I'm just a goofball. And they'd be like, oh, wow, you're just a person. And they would say that to me, like a complimentary insult. Oh, well, my God, you're just a person. And I'd be like, yes, you've got it, Anyway, so then we'd end up having these beautiful conversations, which now we're just two people.
Yeah.
And if we weren't just two people and I could tell that they were still, quote unquote, looking up to me or idealizing me or, then I'd be like, hey, we're not there yet. So I would say more things. I would ask them more things about them to try to break that down and to get into an interesting discussion about them.
Gotcha. Okay. So you also have written about fear, insecurity, pain, heartbreak. Like, this is something that I think is part of, I give you credit, as part of your story, a part of what you're willing to talk about. Yeah. Everybody has these things. They don't all broadcast them or talk about them. What are some of the ways that you've battled and dealt with insecurity, fear, pain, heartbreak? How have you handled those things in your life? Yeah,
it's painful to be me. I think it's painful to be any of us. Right? We have pain, we have hurt, we have insecurity, we have unpleasant sensations as human beings. But as a young kid, I think when I felt painful feelings, I always assumed that it was something was wrong with me. Because I had these great parents. They were, I guess, just sort of ideal. They looked ideal, right? My dad was this brilliant sort of Harvard, Princeton, Brown scientist, He went to Princeton undergrad, then he went to, Brown for his PhD, then went to Harvard for his postdoctoral fellowship, and, he had this pedigree, and he was this great-looking guy, and he was super articulate, and he knew every word, and he spoke Latin, for heaven's sakes, and insofar as it can be spoken. And then my mom was this sort of lovely registered nurse who became a psychologist and who's this brilliant person and just lively. And then my brother, God, that was really screwed it up. I had one brother, and lo and behold, he was the good-looking one and gorgeous, and he had the blonde hair, the blue eyes. He had that kind of feathered hair back then in the 70s and 80s, which was all cool, where parts in the middle, and like the young rock star guys, And so he had this hair. I remember sitting next to him in a chair at a barber, and literally, there was two female, hair cutters, not barbers. I think of barbers, I think of man. But anyway, there was a woman cutting his hair, a woman cutting my hair, and I heard them chatting. Oh my God, look at how nice his hair is. And the one on my side's like, yeah, his hair is nice, meaning my brother's. And they're like, oh God, look at the way it flows. And I'm just sitting there going, yep, that's him. And and he was just sort of like, and he knew the game with the girls, and he was kind of, he was all rough on them and stuff. And they were like, oh, he's mean to me, I love it. Swear to God, I wish I was kidding. He mastered the art of being the guy who just didn't care. And they were like, he doesn't care, I love it. So anyway, so he was this guy who was just, so I felt like, God, I got this gorgeous brother, I got these successful parents, and I'm just this kid who's like insecure and vulnerable, and I don't like my vulnerability. And and then when he was nasty to me or beat me up, and every now and then he'd punch me. What older brother doesn't? Mine did. Anyway, so if we got in a fight and he'd like beat me up, I would go to my mom later and go, I don't want to forgive him. I keep forgiving. Like, he wants to go throw the Frisbee with me, and I don't want to forgive him, but I keep forgiving him. I can't help but forgive him. And my mom told me that story again recently. Like, I used to get furious with myself that I couldn't hold a grudge. And I've never been able to hold a grudge. I don't hold grudges. It's weird. I should. I feel like I should. I'd like to get better at it, but I have not been able to. I've not been able to master it. So I'd always forgive him right away. But I thought it was a weakness of mine, you see. I really believed it was a weakness. I was furious with myself when I'd say yes to go play Frisbee. So here he beats the hell out of me. I'm like, my nose is bleeding. I wipe my nose. And 20 minutes later, he's like, Monty, let's go play Frisbee. I'm like, okay, And so I was just this young kid who, just like wanted to be loved and wanted to be understood. Like, I guess all of us, like I said yesterday, all of us want to be loved and understood. If you don't, come talk to me, because I'd like to figure out your secret. But we all want that. And I just didn't feel good enough. I never felt good enough. And then, okay, you want to show, okay. Then in third grade, I think it was, or was it first grade? No, I think it was, second grade. I was in elementary school. I was supposed to play this part in this little dumb play, and I'm supposed to swing on a trapeze. Like if there's no trapeze, I'm supposed to pretend. I mean, it's really corny. It's like this. It's like I'm supposed to go, like that, right? And I've got these little white tennis shorts. Like if you watch the 1970s tennis matches, like McEnroe, he's got these shorts that are like really short, really geeky. I had those, white. And I didn't even remember my shirt. And so I'm doing this trapeze thing. I wet my pants. In front of what seemed like 500 times more people than this. I'm sure it was 300 adult, families, parents and shit. It was a play. Mm-hmm. Wet my pants, running down my leg. On the trapeze, which didn't exist. And I remember going, oh, Jesus. And so I went off the stage, and all these do-gooder parents and, PTO members or PT, whatever, and teachers are going, oh, it's okay, it's okay. And I'm like, it's okay? I mean, it's okay? Oh, yeah, sure, it's okay. I just wet my pants in front of the whole school. So you want to talk about a humbling moment? I'm already an insecure kid. Now I wet my pants in front of the whole school. I mean, that was scarring, man. I was like, oh. And I just could never become that person that I wanted to be, which was I wanted to be tough. I wanted to be emotionally impermeable. I wanted to not give a damn when someone hurt my feelings. I didn't want to have feelings because feelings got in the way. They kept hurting. So it took me a long time. And so that's when I talk about pain and heartbreak. I was always heartbroken because everything hurt. The smallest insult, the smallest non-compliment, a compliment that wasn't a big enough compliment, a really good compliment that could have been better, hurt. Everything hurt. So I was this sort of giant, delicate, what do you call it? What is this? Radar, here we go. Like a giant, delicate, radar screen looking for a reason to be hurt. And I found many. And, it took me a long time to actually realize that delicate thing about me, that thing where I feel everything that everyone's thinking. I mean, I've got this perception, this weird perception. I tend to just feel what people are feeling and what they're thinking. And I thought it was this horrible weakness, and I kept trying to get rid of it. My mom always told me it was a strength as a kid. Oh, that's a strength. Yeah, thanks, Mom. But someday I finally realized, wow, I've just got to accept that that's me and forgive it. It doesn't matter whether somebody thinks it's good or somebody thinks it's bad. I had to forgive myself and then realize that it's okay. So I'm hurting right now. And what I found was that if I could allow that, then the amount of joy that sprung from that was incredible. And that's where I started to kind of get really interested in the ego and the essential self, and sort of this juxtaposition between we all have an essential self, we all have an ego. With some people, it's like this. In fact, with most people, it's really entwined. It's so entwined that most people do not know where their ego starts and ends and where their essential self starts and ends. But with work, we can sort of gradually tease it apart where we go, okay, now I see the ego, and now I can allow some room for my essential nature. And I think that that's the greatest lesson I learned from being essentially, a really scared kid who thought that I was a wimp. And I wasn't objectively a wimp. I maybe became 6'4". I was 225 pounds. I was a big guy in college and everything. But I always felt wimpy at heart. In fact, I said to someone here yesterday, they were like, God, I'm really sorry with my feelings. I said, oh, don't worry, I'm a total wimp. And they laughed because they knew what I meant. And it was like, okay, cool. Now we're both wimps. Now let's talk.
I want to open up too, but I have a lighter question that I read about in your book. And maybe this is just a me thing, but I love the thought of bringing people together. And I read that you bring people together on a ski trip every year and play poker. And you invited your friend Jim, who is now the president at Pepperdine, to this trip one year. I'm just curious, and this is, again, less deep, more practical kind of fun stuff. What's that all about? What's the annual ski trip, the poker games, the bringing together of friends? I'm just curious about that part of your life.
Well, I guess the thing that I enjoy more than anything in the world is bringing together a group of people who love each other, care about each other, are open and willing, and just to have a good time together. And so, yeah, I've done it. I have poker trips up to this place I've got up in the mountains where we all sit there and just play poker. And yeah, Jim Gash, who's the president of Pepperdine, the first year I invited him, I'm like, yeah, come along, and he comes up there and he won the whole thing. We had a competition. He took the whole thing down, and so he always rubs that in my face every time that he won that one. But anyway, another thing I do is I go on airplane road trips. So I take my TBM. We have a bunch of friends, and we fly around to different places for a week. And the unwritten rule is we don't ever talk about where we're going the next day. You know, so that morning we'll get up, where do you want to go? And we'll go and we'll land somewhere and we'll just see what happens. We don't get a hotel room in advance. Sometimes we don't get a hotel room at all because there's not one. And so we end up just seeing what the day brings and sort of live in the moment. And it's really, really fun. Something cool you can do with an airplane that's a huge blessing. But I think that, you know, to me, you know, I love people. I'm fascinated by people. I find something in everybody to admire very, very quickly, you know, and I find that whenever I meet someone, anybody, right away, I'm just looking at all the beautiful qualities they have that I don't have, that I wish I had, or like, wow, and I find so much to admire. And I think that since I find so much to admire, being around people for me is a real treat. You know, I really enjoy being with folks. And I tend to enjoy being with people, you know, I don't enjoy more being with someone who society says is a big shot than society says is a small shot. I might enjoy them a ton as a big shot, but it's nothing to do with their big shotedness.
Right.
What it has to do with is how much of a connection to their heart can I have? How much permission do they give me to have a connection with their heart? You know, and I think that some people have a very protected and sort of guarded heart. They're afraid to allow that connection, that vulnerability. And I understand. But some people, they'll allow more trust and they'll allow more of that heart connection. Now, the heart connection, by the way, it is love, but you know, we don't want to scare people with that word, so we'll just say heart connection. But when you have a heart connection with someone, you know, you feel this flow of goodness and joy and vitality and care and concern, and it's very uplifting. And so any event that I can create where I bring people together to share that, to me, is what life's all about. And even at Chipotle, we had 75,000 people, and I will tell you, and so will the 75,000, and it's a lot more than that because there was turnover over the years, that at that time in Chipotle, for those 13 years or so, it was a love festival. I mean, like my friend Dave Chrisman always says, he says, it was like a cult, but in a good way, you know? And it was because people were all bought into this one idea, which is that each of us will be rewarded sort of in this life, not just in pay raises and promotions, but in this life, we will be sort of spiritually rewarded and financially rewarded and career rewarded, every way rewarded, by making the people around us better. Yeah. And so what happened was we had this whole culture where everybody was invested in making the people around them better. And it became this enthusiastic, addicting, wonderful, and incredibly uplifting organization and culture, which also happened to be, and I didn't emphasize this yesterday during my speech, but which also happened to be absolutely the most powerful way to make an incredibly powerful, successful, financially successful organization that could possibly, there's no other way you could have done that better than by creating that culture. So the grand irony of all this is that which feels best, you know, that which is best for the people in the organization, which opens their hearts, which allows them to have interaction with each other in a loving way, which allows them to actually care about the people around them and want the people around them to be better, is actually what it takes for your organization to totally kick ass in every way that shareholders care about. And so there isn't, gee, I'd rather have a good culture than a good business. No. It's, you want a great business from all the things that shareholders and people who only care about money care about? Well, then do the culture part. Yeah. Because it always helps your results.
Again, I mentioned it earlier, but the soft stuff, you know, I got labeled that early in my career. It's like, it's the essential
it's
stuff,
not soft
man.
stuff.
It's the essential stuff. Yeah. Do we want to have any questions? Are we using that, or do we want to raise hands, guys? What do you want to use? Raise hands? Oh, okay. Do you want to put them up now, or while we're waiting, does anybody have one? We can just fire away while we're waiting. Anybody want to go? Yeah.
Well, I'm hesitant to talk about that, you know, because I don't know it that well. I get a lot of letters from people saying it's changed dramatically and wishing it hadn't. But when I left, I tried to leave cleanly and not muck with it and not interfere. And I do keep wonderful relationships through the internet and emails and so forth, and letters and phone calls and whatever, and texts. A relationship with sort of thousands of people there, and I prize those relationships. But I've just, what I've heard, and I just don't want to go there because I don't know, but what I've heard is it's like, the things I'm talking about aren't really centrally as important anymore to the culture. So, and if that's true, that I think is a pity. You know, yeah, so I guess I feel hesitant to share because I don't really know.
as a customer and love the place, I feel like it's. I still like the food, but it's not the same. It feels like it's changed.
Feels different in restaurants.
I didn't never work there, but okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, man. Do either of you practice mindfulness? Go ahead, Monty.
Okay, yeah. So this idea of mindfulness, I mean, you could mean a lot of different things by that. But I would say I try to practice mindfulness sort of all day, every day. And I'm not saying that to be a wise guy. I'm saying that because my mom is really good. Like, she meditates every day, and she's done it since I was a little kid. So I was aware of this idea of meditation. Oh, meditation. So I tried to meditate. And my mom even gave me a Gomden, like a little pillow, and she said, okay, sit on that, cross-legged. Well, when I sit cross-legged, it hurts. I hate it. Ouch, it just hurts. And when I sit, I feel restless. And so when I sit, I have found I'm a poor meditator. I'm not good at sitting to meditate. I'm just an active guy. I mean, I've got tons of energy. It's weird. I don't drink coffee. If I do drink coffee, well, you don't want to see it. It's not pretty. It's just all sorts of shaking and nervousness, and it's not good. I mean, this is bad enough, right? Without it. But because I'm a poor meditator, what I try to do throughout the day, all day, every day, is just check in with where I am. Hey, is my ego popping up again? Which it does a lot, right? Like right now, I don't feel that my ego is involved at all. I'm not, right at this very moment, it's a rare moment, I'm not really judging myself as positive or negative. Whoa, that's pretty rare. Now when I get off stage, I might be like, oh God, I took all the time and I spoke too much about that. And I told him I peed my pants. And I mean, I'll go do all that shit because I've got an ego. But at this moment, I'm just sitting and being mindful. I'm aware that I'm in a room of incredibly special people. I was fortunate enough to meet, I feel like, hundreds of you, and thank you for coming up and introducing yourselves. Awesome group of people. God, what is it with aviation? Love it. And I'm aware that I'm on stage with Ryan, so I'm aware of those things, but I'm just sort of trying to allow my heart to be open to the experience. And that's mindfulness. I mean, that's what mindfulness is. The funny thing about mindfulness, if I might say, is that to me, the mindfulness really means getting out of your mind. It's actually what it means. Like, mindfulness is about experiencing your heart and being present. And the more you're in your mind, you're not mindful. It's kind of funny. So if by mindful you mean, solving the Rubik's Cube in your mind as I'm doing this, I know that's not what you mean, and that would be mindful, maybe. But when we say mindful, I think what we mean is, just being present, being capable of experiencing the moment. So I try to do that all day, every day.
Question for Monty. Please define what flying an aircraft means.
Oh, God. Okay. So every time I go down the runway and I take off, I'm like going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm allowed to do this. I can't believe that the government allows me to fly over perfectly, important people with something that is explosive and filled with fuel at hundreds of miles an hour with a spinning prop. I can't believe the views. I just feel like goosebumpy, uplifted every time I take off. And I've only got, you guys have a lot of hours. I only have 1,200 hours of flying, but 1,200 hours in the air. And to still not be used to it, I feel like I'm better at it, but I still just love it every moment of it. And there's something, I think, just sort of spiritually profound about actually going up and actually looking over the earth and having this sort of omniscient perspective of all that is below you, and having a chance to get perspective over it and to feel the smallness of yourself and the largeness of this beautiful planet we occupy. It's just I don't know. Listen, I can go on and on about it, but I guess you get the point that to me it's very special. But
so I think this one's probably for both. Can you talk about the leap you made from corporate America? I talked about this a little bit during my talk, and Monty, I'd like to hear your answer too. I'll just briefly say, for me, I think in my case, I listened to what the market was telling me. I had a full-time job for a while and decided to leave once I was literally running out of PTO days to do stuff like this. Get asked to go speak, go work with another leadership team, and I also got to the point where I had to make a choice. And I thought I would love to go all in on the thing that I'm most passionate and curious about. Brian Koppelman, who was on my show, said, find the thing that you want to passionately pursue because you're so curious, borderline obsessed with it. And to me, it was about learning from people and then sharing what I was learning with others. And I think, and I still feel this way, if I have to, I could go get a job. I could go get one if I have to. I don't want to, but I could go get one. So luckily having a good partner was huge for me, and she said, let's go, let's do it. So to me, that's what I chose 4 years ago, and now fortunately it's been pretty cool to see that it's working out, and hopefully it continues to. I don't know about you. You chose to walk away when you could have stayed, probably.
And I loved it. And I didn't have, there was no negativity. It was just sort of like, it felt like time. It just felt like in my heart that it was time to maybe explore something different. And I didn't know what that was. And I think if you look back at my life, I mean, it's funny because people say, God, when you were a kid, did you have, you must have had goals. Not really. I've never been a goal guy. I just sort of wandered through life and good things happened. Now, it's true that during my life, I would see things, like for instance, when I first became president and COO of Chipotle, right at the beginning, I went through that management program and I thought, this is terrible. This is an awful way to train managers. We should promote from within, And at that moment that I saw that, it was visceral. It was like, oh, God, we got to change this. And I thought it was an emergency to change it. Like I wanted to change it now. I wanted to work all day, every day till it was changed because I thought it was that horrible. Terrible way to build our future leaders. And so I felt that it was an emergency to change it. So is that a goal? Well, sure, I had a goal of changing it at that moment, right? But that goal came, and then as I was solving that, other goals came along. But I never had a goal of, gee, I want to be a CEO someday. Never. I never had a goal of, I want to be a lawyer someday, for some reason, I just wanted to have, obviously a good life, and I hoped I would. But I was sort of looking more short term at just what felt good.
Yeah.
What felt good, what felt right. And I think it's really important to try to listen because there's a lot of shoulds, right? In life, there's a lot of, well, you should, get good grades. You should go to a good college. Then you should go to a good law school if you want to go to law school. And then you should be a good parent. You should. So there's all these shoulds, right, that kind of knock on our door throughout our lives. They're all over the place. You can't avoid them. But what, unfortunately, many of us do avoid is what feels right? What feels right in your heart? And I think that question and sort of listening, or really feeling what our own heart is telling us, is a much, much more powerful guide to walking through the garden of life in a way that leads to beautiful stops along the way.
Yeah.
And I just hope that this beautiful life I'm living with these beautiful people that I get to meet continues to wind down a wonderful, lovely path. I hope it will. And if it doesn't, then I hope that I can overcome the challenges.
Is there another company out there whose culture you value highly and why? What do you think? You've been in this world. I'm just thinking of this group of people, and so I know this isn't a company, but boy, it seems like there's so many special people in aviation. Companies. Well, I always admired, when I first started at Chipotle, I really admired the Four Seasons hotel chain because whenever I went into the hotels, the people who were serving me seemed comfortable. And they didn't say, have you come to the Four Seasons before? Is this your first day? They didn't have to say this stuff, right? And so they seemed genuine and authentic. And so I actually flew up to Toronto, Canada to meet with the head of the HR guy because I was like, hey, how are you doing this? Like your people are really authentic. And he told me a lot of things that were very consistent with what we were trying to do at Chipotle. That had to do with what I talked about yesterday, empowerment and letting people be the best version of themselves and not trying to turn them into robots, but instead derive out of each of them what was best about each of them in the form of customer service that was authentic. So any company that that encourages and in fact, enables their people to be authentic is on the right track. Authenticity is a huge, huge thing in my life. So if you're going to ask me, hey, what do you want to do with the rest of your life? I would say something like, I would like to become increasingly authentic and surround myself with people who are authentic and have authentic interactions and, genuine authentic interactions. I have become quite impatient as I've grown older and quite impatient with if something doesn't feel real to me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm a person who's very, very quick to call bullshit on people. Mm-hmm. I do it in a funny way, and so they usually take it well. But, and it could come down just to the guy in the hallway who says, yeah, I'm good, thanks, when he's not. I'm going to call him out. You're not good. You're not having a good day at all, are you? And they usually go, no. I'm like, okay, well, tell me about it, So that's what I live for, is those authentic interactions. And I think that companies that promote that and that understand the value of that. Here's one. So I don't even know what the chain is called, but they're the ones who run Houston's Hillstone restaurants. They've got a chain of restaurants. In Denver, it's called the Cherry Creek Grill, and it's called Hillstone. There's 2 restaurants in Denver. Banderas, I think, is in their thing. Anyway, these restaurants, you guys might have heard of them. They're in a lot of the major American cities. Those folks do a consistently awesome job
And their people look awesome, and they seem empowered, and they seem, I don't know much about the organization. I don't know anything behind the scenes. I just know that which they're producing in the restaurants. For a chain restaurant, I think it's at the absolute top. Great experience, and so I admire their culture, however they do it.
Let's do one more if we have time. Something new that you've learned from each other through your speeches. So, interactions with us just now. I love the thought of treating everyone as a mentor, and your story about Will like embodies that, of like treating everybody as a mentor. I remember taking diligent notes on just the fact of anybody, anywhere, anytime, with this open mindset of like with love and with care and with genuine curiosity to learn about him and his story, that has changed your life, right? That interaction has changed your life. And to me, like, this may be weird, but like I feel like we're all of us are always like on the verge of that potentially happening, like now. Who could that be? And so I like this mindset of treat everyone as your mentor that I learned quickly from your talk yesterday. I thought was for me was a huge takeaway that I think
I'm so
could
glad.
be
I'm so glad
life-changing.
that was useful.
Yeah,
thank you. And a word about curiosity. I mean, curiosity is an enormously powerful thing. And it leads to, typically, asking questions. Questions are an enormously powerful thing. Not because you ask them well, not even because of what you ask, but you know, if you ask a question that has as its foundation curiosity. In other words, if you have an abiding curiosity, it will lead to a question in your mind, you know? Don't worry about how that question comes out. The question will come out well if it's founded in curiosity. Now, if you ask a question that is designed to embarrass someone, that's not a question. That's an effort to embarrass someone, even if it has a question mark at the end. If you have a question that's designed to demean someone or make you seem better than them, that's not a question. That's an effort to demean them or seem powerful with a question mark at the end. A question is something that comes from like this, from curiosity. And curiosity is born from like this, from love. I mean, when you're really curious about someone, it's like I said yesterday, you're promoting them to, for that moment, your guru. You are bowing before them. You don't need to bow. You're bowing before them going, you know, please teach me. Please teach me about you. Please tell me something about you. I want to know about you. Share your heart with me, please. I would like to share my heart with you. And that invitation, right, it comes out of curiosity. And I must say, I think I was born curious because I'm one of these guys like, just if I don't know something, I just want to know. I want to know. Even dumb stuff. I want to know stupid things, especially stupid things. You know, but I'm really curious. But I think that curiosity has driven me to make much more genuine human connections. And so I would encourage everyone to sort of fan the flames of your curiosity and let it free. Trust that it will take you to good places. Be good to it. You know, let it flow. Ask the question. Don't ever avoid asking a question because you think it's a stupid question. Just ask it out of curiosity, and it's never stupid. It's always a great question if it's genuinely asked with the idea of learning something.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to end. Everybody, let's give it up for Monty Moran. Let's go.
Thanks, Ray.
It's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
It's awesome.
Yeah,
So cool. So cool.